All right. Welcome to Board of Commissioners meeting May 7th. I'm going to call this meeting to order. We're going to start tonight off like we do every night with Pledge of Allegiance and invocation. Tonight, don't stand up yet. Tonight, Andrew Lodge 686 is going to join us for both. So if you guys would like to join us up here, and then I believe Kevin will let us know when it's time to stand. Make sure you speak right in that microphone, Kevin.
You know I will. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the Board of Commissioners, Town Manager, citizens present and watching online. On behalf of the fraternity brethren of Andrew Lodge number 686, Ancient Free and Accepted Masons, I would like to thank you for inviting us to open this meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation. Our lodge has been an active supporter and contributor to the town of Andrews since we were chartered in 1950. Many of our present and past members are or were active business owners and volunteers, and we are proud to be part of this community and to be here tonight. At last month's town meeting, former Commissioner Alan Coates gave a brief history of the Pledge of Allegiance and mentioned one of the authors named Francis Bellamy, whom was also a member of our fraternity, belonging to Little Falls Lodge number 181, Little Falls, New York. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Remain standing. Let us bow our heads in prayer. Heavenly Father, at this time we come to you with our heads bowed and pray to him that he will enlighten these elected officials to make decisions that are just, right, and true for our community. We pray to you for allowing us to live, prosper, and thrive in these United States of America, the state of North Carolina, and this ever-expanding town we call Andrew. We give thanks to all of our Town of Andrew employees and recognize them during this Public Service Recognition Week. We pray that you daily look after our professional public safety employees and first responders and all volunteers that wear a uniform that protect and care for us around the clock. Finally, shield our men and women in the armed forces of our great nation, whether stateside or abroad, as they protect our freedom that allows us to live our daily lives in peace and harmony. We pray in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. All right. We have the agenda in front of us. Understanding that I can make procedural motions, I was hoping that we could add a discussion of personnel to tonight's closed session. So, therefore, I make the motion that we add that. All those in favor? Is that okay?
As long as the board votes to go into closed session for that purpose, I think it's fine. You're not even really adding an agenda item, you're just adding a reason to go to closed session.
All right. So we'll wait till then. All right. We don't have any presentations tonight, so we're going to do public comment. Anyone could speak on any issue. If you want to speak at a public hearing, please wait until the public hearing has been opened on that particular item. Before speaking, please state your name and address. We ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes so we could keep the meeting moving right along. So with that, we'll start with Elizabeth Longman. If you could join us up here. Make sure you speak right into that microphone or they won't be able to hear it online. And start with your name and address for us.
Elizabeth Longman. Is that good enough?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Elizabeth Longman. I live in Bun Level, North Carolina, but I am here for a resident of Angier, North Carolina. On or about Good Friday, a horrible incident happened. Somewhere in the middle of the night, in the execution of their duties, the Angier police brutalized a woman. They beat her naked broke her arm, dislocated her shoulder, and rubbed her into the concrete. When I saw her, her left breast was black, not blue, but black. She could not feed herself. She couldn't even pour a cup of water to drink. I asked the police chief. I went and talked with him. I talked with number 2. I'll call them number 2 and number 1. I talked with the vice number 2, and then I talked with number 1. And I can say that those men wanted to do something. They heard, they knew their men. They are the police force. They were ready to hear from anyone who wants to talk to them. But it wasn't easy, and I can tell you for the police chief, it wasn't easy for him to hear things. But the town of Angier had lawyered him up. By the second day, he was lawyered up. I kept asking, has anyone gone to check on this woman? I traveled from Bun Level. I know some of these councilmen, I know what good hearts they have. Said, did anybody go to check? He said, they have been lawyered up. I started looking for the mayor of this town. I went physically to where people said I might find him. I couldn't find him. I sent him a text message. I said, I would like to speak to you face to face. His main concern was to go and watch the video of a woman being beaten naked than to meet me face to face. I said, have you talked to the actual person, just as a human being, gone in and checked and said, how are you doing? She is, after all, a citizen here in Angier. Something horrible happened. If something horrible happened to any one of you, before I went to ask what's wrong or what's not wrong, I'll just come and say, how are you doing? What do you need to make it into the next sunrise or make it to the next sunset? Somewhere we claim Christianity in all of this. In true Samaritan fashion, God sent help for this lady, sent people to cook for her food, strangers she'd never seen, sent people to wash her, sent people to make sure. It took about 7 days later for her even to get an attorney. She had nothing but her wounds and the trauma she kept reliving in waves over and over again. I hope that you think of using a police accountability task force. I hope you free up the police chief to do his job to the best of his capability instead of trying to send the town manager to make statements for a department she has no idea what the workings of are. Let the police chief do his job. Let him engage with the public. Let him come back and report what his suggestions are for the town of Angier regarding police accountability or not, or what improvements. But now you've lawyered him up. So even if we want to send help, we can't because you're busy hiding.
Thank you, Ms. Longman. Next is Alan Longman.
My name is Alan Longman, 234 Hamilton Road, Bond Level. Reason we're here is for the same person, but for others, actually. Since we've been here, we've found other people that came forward saying they too were abused. And while they're scared, extremely scared, to come forward, we believe that eventually they will. One of these individuals was an individual that was inside one of the homeless camps who had to run for her life because she was frightened that the police that were there were harassing her and were going to hurt her. The point is, this has been going on for a while. Why hasn't anything been done about it? There are many people who want to find answers that are not in this county, in this town, but some in the county are here. And officials want to find out what's going on. There's so many people. And the body cam has to be seen by these people. They required it. There are other lawyers also who want to look at it because of the other people. And we want answers. We want something done. If this has been going on, why hasn't anyone been punished? Hasn't anyone been investigated? Why hasn't anybody asked the chief of police, you're in charge of these people. If they're doing things wrong, why aren't you investigating them as well? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Longman. Fran Bishop.
Hi, y'all.
Hey.
Fran Bishop, 98 Buddy Campbell Court. I'm here representing the ABC store as the chair of the board. Couple things. One thing first is that there's been kind of a game of hot potato going on with the library fund money. So if anybody has any ideas as to how we can get that resolved, if there's something we have to do, if there's something the town has to do, I've gone back and I've read all, and I've listened to all the meeting notes, and it seems like it's in your court, that it's in our court, then it's somewhere else. So if anybody can offer us any kind of guidance on that, that money's just still sitting in the town bank account, and we would like some ideas of whether we send it to Harnett County for the library, or do we disperse it to somewhere else? It's been like over a year. So anybody that has any input on that or can give us some guidance on that, I'd sure appreciate it. Second reason I'm here, trying to talk fast, is we had a meeting on April the 16th, and our board made a motion, and it was approved, to disperse $5,500 from our alcohol education money fund that we had left from the second quarter, actually the second quarter disbursements. It's just, we've been looking for a place to disperse this. So we met with Chief Thompson. He mentioned that the ABC boards in the past had donated money towards the National Night Out. We thought that's an outstanding idea. We're even talking about getting a banner that says National Night Out and End Alcohol Education event, so we're going to kind of make it a dual purpose. So I have here the check tonight, and I also just brought a copy of the minutes where it was approved in case y'all need it, and I'll just hand that off to you. And that's all I came for.
Thank you, Ms. Bishop. All right. Consent agenda. We have approval of the minutes, so we have all been presented with the minutes from April 2nd and April 11th. We just need to approve those.
I'll go ahead and make the motion that we approve the minutes as written.
All right. All those in favor, raise your right hand. It's unanimous. All right, moving on. We have two public hearings tonight. Jeff is going to present them both to us. So, Jeff, you could come on up here and present the first one. I'll mention that since this is not a quasi-judicial hearing, there's no need to swear anyone in. When it's time for public comment, I'll just ask you to come up and speak if you wish to. All right, Jeff, lay it on us.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. The first thing on the agenda is an ordinance amendment to look at how we approve residential communities through a PUD process and townhome communities, multifamily communities. If you remember back in the early part of this year, we did a presentation on the number of communities, the number of lots that the town of Angier has approved within the recent few years. But I think we had a 2020 to 24 chart for you all to look at, and somewhere around 4,000, 3,500, 4,000 lots have been approved in that time frame. And what we found is that most of those approvals were through a PUD process. There were a handful of subdivisions that were approved through conditional zoning, but mostly what we found were R6 developments that have been occurring through a PUD process or through conditional zoning. We've also had, over the last few months, some multifamily communities that have come to the town, and as we have seen, anything over 20 multifamily units requires a special use permit through the Board of Adjustment, which you all are part of the Board of Adjustment, along with planning board members. We have understood from you all as a town board that you would like to adjust how the town looks at these types of developments, and to broaden the ability for neighborhoods and citizens and you all to consider these projects and the impact of those projects on the community at large and specifically neighborhoods that are adjacent to these projects. What we are going to go over tonight is a change to the ordinance that removes PUDs and multifamily projects from a special use permit, which would be before the Board of Adjustment, to a conditional zoning approval process, which would then go to the planning board and to you all for a public hearing and approval of a rezoning, essentially. So we'll sort of go a little bit background. Conditional zoning is that legislative process which does allow for the applicant to propose and the local government to consider a map amendment that includes additional conditions. Conventional zoning maps amendments change the zoning districts applicable to a piece of property but do not include any standards beyond the base standards of the zoning ordinance. The conditional zoning process will allow for local governments and the applicant to agree on additional conditions that may be appropriate for a particular project within the context of legislative zoning. And that part of the process will open up a project to be reviewed against the town ordinances as a project would be. But then if there were staff conditions or planning board conditions and ultimately town board conditions that you would like to discuss with the applicant, you're free to do that now as opposed to what we currently have on the books. What we've found is that special use permit application process really ties the hands of the board to what is in the ordinance and doesn't allow for you all to say yes to something but with conditions. So the conditional zoning process is what we're going to be proposing. Again, this is general statutes. It kind of lays out types of zoning districts. One is conventional zoning districts, which we have, a majority of our town is in conventional zoning districts. Conditional districts are which site plans or individualized development conditions are imposed. That's what we're proposing to go to tonight. There's a couple of others, form-based districts and overlay districts. The town does have overlay districts when it goes to watershed protection. And I think we have another one for, we have two. I can't remember what the other one is right off the top of my head. And then any districts that might be allowed by charter. So it's sort of simple in its complicated way. The ordinance that we currently have speaks to conditional zoning. As I mentioned starting out, we have had conditional zoning applications before you all and prior boards that rezone property most recently to R6 with conditions. And there would be a whole host of conditions, some 10, 12, 14 conditions. That's similar to what you all will see moving forward with PUDs specifically and then multifamily developments. So what we're proposing to do is change the table of uses to strike out permitted for multifamily projects and to reclassify those as conditional zoning only. And then same with planned developments. Currently they're special use permits and those are indicated by S. And those would then move to a CZ by conditional use only process. So this is a process that has worked in other jurisdictions. I know Lillington has a conditional zoning process that they use. Mint Hill, North Carolina uses a very similar chart like we have, and they have a lot of uses that they have identified over the years that they would like to have in conditional zoning. What you all may consider is tonight's amendments that takes care of multifamily and PUDs, but there may be other uses in the future that we would want to either take out of a special use process or just permitted by right and move those into a conditional zoning only category where you're okay with that use if it meets certain standards and conditions that are appropriate for that for that area of town and for the community at large. So, so what staff has presented to you all in your packet is the mechanisms to create the change, which is striking through some sections in to the special use process for multifamily, and then the special use process for the planned development, and moving those to a conditional zoning category. So those are the strike-throughs and the underlines that you have. There is a slight change to the online version that you and what was in your packet. There is some at the new section of 4.12 where we start speaking about conditional zonings. We needed to remove a couple of lines that continue to speak to the 20 units or more for multifamily, so we removed that line. And then there was a couple of references to the Board of Adjustment for waivers and changes to the plan, major changes to the plan, going back to the Board of Adjustment. Those references need to be referenced to the town board, and then references to the special use process itself. And those would then be referenced to the conditional zoning process. So it's in your packet, and what folks see online is a lot because we're moving things around and striking through things. But in its simple form, we really are changing the use table and then pointing where in the use table to go in our ordinances to find the details for that particular use. I can answer any questions that you have and anything that may come up at the public hearing.
So I'm going to dumb this way down for myself, and maybe it'll help somebody. And you just correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
At the root of all this, conditional zoning is not new. We've used conditional zoning before.
Right.
What we are doing is moving any multifamily,
Correct.
2 and up,
Yes.
down to a duplex, and up to the moon, and any planned urban developments would have to come before us in a conditional zoning,
Correct.
which is legislative and not quasi-judicial. And what that means is it's not testimony. We don't have to only hear from legally described experts.
Correct.
We could take input from the public and consider it.
Right.
We could consider our own knowledge of site or road or traffic conditions. Will they have to have an actual site plan?
They will. They will
And-
need to have a master plan that shows what their development will look like.
Right. And if they're willing to work with us, then we're allowed to offer conditions
Absolutely.
to affect the site plan.
Yes, absolutely.
Can we make them or ask them to? Can we ask them to, as a condition, put a turn lane in on a main road, even if DOT says it's not
You
required?
can ask them,
Okay.
for sure. And they will need to agree to those conditions that you place on
Yeah.
the project. But that negotiation certainly can happen at the beginning stage with staff, all the way through until the public hearing.
Right. And so really I see it as, on one hand, we are taking more control. Whether you love that or hate it,
Right.
we're taking more control of multifamily developments. But we have a lot more flexibility than the rigid requirements of a quasi-judicial hearing
Correct.
to do what we see is going to suit the town in the best way
Correct.
without fear of being sued later for it.
Right. I think what is important to note for you all moving forward and future boards is that those conditions imposed really need to be pertinent to the plan. And you can't, try to negotiate something that is really
Sure.
not pertinent to that plan. So,
Right.
I don't think you all will do that. I think I think what you all will see is that there may be some need for negotiation, better understanding from the community on the impact of that development.
Yeah.
And then the developer may say, "Oh yeah, I hadn't thought about that," and we're willing to do that type of buffer or street design or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to open the public hearing,
Okay.
and then we'll discuss it some more after that. Is there anyone here who has any input or questions while we have Jeff up here about this ordinance? Let me open it officially. All right. Now, if anyone has anything to add, now's the time. Sure?
I would just like to say that my job here is to speak on behalf of the community. I think it's really important that the community be heard. And I think my mic is on. I think this gives the community the opportunity to be heard because it's very important. And so thank you for taking the time to weed through this for us.
Absolutely. Yes.
All right. If there's no public comment, I'll close the public hearing. And then we could discuss amongst ourselves. It's pretty clear what we're looking at here. This is exactly what we were asking you for, and you made it way simpler than I thought it could be. I mean, I thought this was going to be a long, painful process, and not that this wasn't, but the end result seems very simple, and it really seems to give us what I was looking for, at least, which is some more control.
I was a little concerned too about what the changes might look like, but once I got into it and started researching other jurisdictions, it was clear that we could make the change fairly simple and just modify the ordinance and do some things to the chart and the use table and go from there. And as ordinances we can change them tonight and we can come back at another time and say, well, maybe multifamily was a little heavy-handed. Maybe we don't need to do duplexes or something like that. But let's just move forward and see how that works. But in the future, you all may want to lessen on that requirement for multifamily.
So for now, the burden's on us. If we're willing to consider all the way down to duplexes, for now at least.
Yeah.
And then we can always revise if we see that we need to adjust something. But this is a big change. I appreciate you and planning board and everyone else who's worked on it before it came to us. So
I think
Absolutely.
this is what the town is ready for.
yeah,
There was a time where we needed to have development, and we wanted to write rules and ordinances that promoted development in Anger. We're getting that development, and we're going to continue to get that development. What this does is give the public and you all a little bit more say in what that development is for the town of Anger.
Dan, are we going to step in anything on this?
Not if we're doing it the right way. I'm going to send y'all an article on conditional use, like types of conditions you can impose. Obviously, it's not unlimited. It has to be related to the impact the property's going to have and within the bounds of what we're legally allowed to ask for. But going forward, I think this is a good approach.
Okay. And to be clear, before it even comes to us for a hearing, it's going to go through your staff and then planning board.
Absolutely.
And so by the time it reaches us, we expect to see something pretty refined and ready to go in the first place.
Absolutely. Yes.
All right. Any other questions? Discussion?
Thank you. No problem.
All right. Then the ball's in your guys' court.
With that, I make a motion to approve the amendments to Section 3.1 and 3.3 permitted use table and Chapter 4 of the Unified Developer Ordinance as presented.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. It's unanimous. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, board.
It's like Thanksgiving dinner. It takes you forever to make it, and then we just eat it up in a couple of minutes, and it's over.
That's okay. Everybody enjoys it.
All right, let's move on to the next one for you. Uses within Commerce Park, right? Zoning district text amendment.
Correct. We have had a request for an amendment to the Commerce Park zoning district Jimmy Johnson is a local resident and business owner and property owner, and owns several tracts of land that currently have Commerce Park zoning district designated for those parcels. And he is requesting a change to the permitted use table to add 3 uses that are currently not in the Commerce Park zoning district. Those uses would be retail uses, community, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, banquet halls, and personal services. Commerce Park is a relatively new zoning district to the town of Angier. It has come in the last 15 years or so. But what the approach to Commerce Park was to be that business park setting in the town of Angier. The definition of Commerce Park is this district is established for a high-quality mixture of employment, light industrial, and institutional uses, as well as limited retail and service uses to encourage development which will create a self-supporting, advantageous business environment in an attractive corporate setting. The definition of Commerce Park speaks to that limited retail and service uses, and banquet halls, I believe, is in keeping with Commerce Park, in keeping with the spirit of that zoning district. The retail uses community is our least retail uses that we have. So we have 3 tiers of retail uses, which is community, and then we have community, retail community, regional. Let's see if I can find it on the screen here. Sorry. So we have neighborhood. I was missing neighborhood. So we have community, neighborhood, and regional. Community is that less impact. So it's like 10,000 square foot or less on retail, and then it goes all the way up to several 100,000 square feet of retail, which would be a shopping center. So what the applicant is requesting is that least amount of retail that we would have here. This was presented to the planning board, and they recommended approval, and staff is recommending approval as well.
All right, you guys have any questions about his presentation before I open public hearing? All right, with that, I'm going to open public hearing. If anyone from the public like to speak to this or has a question while we've got you?
So Commerce Park is in our zoning district. It's not located necessarily anywhere in the town. There are a handful of parcels that are located specifically, in Mr. Johnson's case, along 210 going towards Lillington is his business park. But there are a handful of other places in town that are zoned Commerce Park.
Right, so that's a good thing to point out is right now we're not talking about a specific location. We're talking about the zoning in general.
That's right.
That would apply to those locations that fall under this zoning already.
Right, and any future locations that may want to be Commerce Park. Right.
So in the instance where we had recently the special use permit surrounding the permitted use of a specific business within a general commercial because it was indicated as light industry, we had to do a special use.
Right.
We're talking about changing all of it.
Well, not in that particular case.
For this though, this circumstance is going to change the ordinance so that every Commerce Park is affected.
Every Commerce Park parcel that is zoned, every parcel that is zoned Commerce Park will have these uses available to them.
Right.
To utilize.
What's the point of having the differences if we're going to make them very similar? Because I was going through the checklist, and while there are still some limited differences, this touches some of the major overlap between GC and CP.
Yeah, so in a general commercial versus Commerce Park, there are some uses that may not be desirable in that business-like setting. I think there were some things like daycares and funeral homes, drive-through facilities, things like that. So you might not want those in Commerce Park, but they're appropriate in general commercial.
Does childcare not fall under personal services?
It wouldn't. No,
Okay.
since we have a specific use category for that, it would go to that daycare service.
Can you humor me and give me a couple of examples of what personal services might include?
Barbershop,
Okay.
hairdresser, those are typical, masseuse, something like that. Yeah, those are personal services. Typically a hairdresser.
Yeah.
That's what falls under that.
Then now I'm going to ask your opinion because I could do that.
Uh-huh.
Do you think that any of these would take away from what the original intent, when this zoning was created, which I wasn't here for, there were intentions. There was a reason behind creating this zoning when we didn't have it before. And I don't know what that was, and you probably don't know either at the
Right,
time.
right.
But do you think that adding these to that would detract from the intention of that?
I don't think so. The definition of Commerce Park speaks to limited retail and personal services or services.
So that's where my question is, why would we need to add if it already allows for? So
Well, it doesn't because
the limited
chart-
retail.
The chart doesn't say retail is allowed. It speaks to it,
Right.
but it never allowed for it. That was a little odd that the definition of Commerce Park speaks to retail, but the writers of Commerce Park didn't include a way for retail.
for you to have retail.
To get into it.
Right.
Okay.
So it was a little odd that the definition says retail, but you can't do retail. So, that's this amendment is sort of trying to clean that up a little bit.
What other areas in Anger that's under the Commerce Park?
There's a handful along 210 right here, not too far from town, that are zone Commerce Park. There's not a whole lot. What we would hope that this zoning district is, utilized in the future along the bypass. For that business park that we would like to establish at some point in time. And this isn't the only time that we will take a look at Commerce Park. There may be other suggestions from staff moving forward as to how we tweak Commerce Park to actually get what we want. But if the definition of Commerce Park says retail and we don't allow it, kind of doesn't make a lot of sense. So, yeah.
All right, if there's no other input from the public, I'm going to close the public hearing. And then do you guys have anything else to add to this or ask Jeff while we've got him up here?
I'm not particularly thrilled about the sweeping change, just because if there are already some existing, I'm not sure. I'm unsure. The business park has existed as it has since erection,
Right.
with nothing on it
Correct.
aside from one business.
Correct.
And I'm just curious, because there are so many other permitted uses, why the need to change? Why not have been GC from the get?
I don't know why Commerce Park, and I'm sure the applicant, he's here, who could speak to that, and answer why not general commercial in the first place. I'm sure it was an effort by the town at one time to sort of-
establish business parks.
Yeah, to sort of set aside an economic development sort of driver. Hey, we have Commerce Park designation in town. And we have an area that is a business park that, we'd like to see something a little bit different there. Still, we'll see that. What has sort of gotten the applicant here before you is that I think people are reaching out to him to utilize some of his lots out there.
I'm curious, is something like a automotive repair shop, is that allowed in Commerce Park?
Let's see. I don't know if I have.
I was reading through your charts and now I don't remember, but I'm trying to, in my head, I'm trying to clearly define.
Currently, it
Yeah,
is.
it's permitted.
It's an automobile service and it's currently permitted. Yeah.
So in my head, I'm wondering what we would see in general commercial that wouldn't aside from Walmart, I
Yeah.
get that.
Yeah.
Because that's over 10,000 square foot. But what other kinds of things would still be kept out of this zoning that would have to be in general commercial?
It's very limited. I think there's a handful of uses that, you all have seen and identified that doesn't make Commerce Park and general commercial that much different. So, again, I don't know why there was a need to create the Commerce Park.
Yeah.
And, others, before us could tell us why.
I'm going to put you on the spot again, and I'm sorry, and ask your opinion because that's what we've got you here for.
Yeah.
Is adding these things to Commerce Park a better move than rezoning to general commercial if you want things that aren't already in it?
Yeah, I think so. I'm thinking of other business parks that I've seen, and what I've seen in other places, Holly Springs, is a lighting company that sells lights to builders and contractors, but you all can go in and buy light fixtures as well. And so it is a business park, industrial park setting. It's a big warehouse, but they do have retail space and showroom. And so this would allow for that. And so, yes, I would think that is appropriate in there. What we could see is, small retail that isn't isn't associated with a business park thing.
Like a vape shop?
I guess that could
Said it.
happen. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mattress store, perhaps?
Yeah. Those are things that could,
We don't face a lot of that. I'm thinking of Fuquay now.
Yeah. Yeah, those are places that could happen, especially like a mattress store. I can see that being a warehouse, in the back, and then sales in the front.
Yeah.
That definitely is something you would see a larger 10,000 square foot building that would.
So the community version of the retail use is the smallest
Yes.
of the retail.
Yes.
I guess the thought is that if a vape shop did want to come in, that would sort itself out if they weren't successful in that zoning.
You're right.
I'm using that as just an example.
It's an example, and I think there's some changes to the ordinance that we could do to address that particular use too. But yeah, I think you're right. Any type of retail that's under 10,000 square feet would be able to be in a Commerce Park zoning district.
And if they're successful there, that's great.
Right.
That's what I want to see.
Yeah.
You're thinking, Jim.
I have a question, just for my own understanding, since I'm having a hard time following a little bit. Because Commerce Park, to my knowledge, has not been annexed as part of the town of Angier, correct?
In this particular case of Mr. Johnson's business park, I do not believe it is part of.
And is Commerce Park Mr. Johnson's business? His solely. So any new business that comes in, does the town of Angier benefit from those retail businesses or not, because it's not? I'm just asking about taxes.
Would they need to annex for utilities and municipal services? I don't know if they would need to do that. They may have county water already, and be able to use septic. So we may not. But again, Commerce Park zoning is what we're looking at. Not you just have an application, a request from a property owner that happens to have Commerce Park zoning. This is for the entire town and any future parcels that may want to zone into Commerce Park.
That's the hang. We're not talking about just one. We're talking about all.
How many other counties have Commerce Parks like?
Oh, there's I think most towns have a business light industrial zoning district. Yeah, that's not uncommon.
Do you know if any of them include uses like these?
Yeah, the personal service may be the one that's a little different, but retail on a limited base and banquet halls, that's not out of question. Yeah.
Forward thinking from your experience and knowledge, is there any risk moving forward with the future if we were to resign?
Be a pessimist for a second. Tell us what's going to backfire on us.
Well, you could see, again, it's opening up for any type of retail, and y'all have mentioned some things, mattress stores, vape shops. Those are things that, that's retail, and that could open up in Commerce Park. And again, we're not talking about one particular location of town. We're talking about any parcel that's zoned Commerce Park today and in the future. I think if a vape shop came in and they needed to rezone, we wouldn't send them through Commerce Park. It would be general business or general commercial. I think to suggest to someone to zone to Commerce Park, it would need to, and you all would need to make sure that that definition is met for what they're wanting to do.
Well, that's what we're doing, is changing the definition.
Well, no.
In a one way, not necessarily another. I guess allowing retail where it says retail is allowed.
Right.
That's
it's currently saying
that's
limited
correcting.
retail.
Yeah.
And you're allowing that, and service uses, and so the request is for personal services. There are already some service uses, as we've seen, automobile services. That's currently allowed out there. So it's one use, banquet halls. That's just a use, but retail, that is sort of unlimited to what retail could be under 10,000, and then personal services typically is.
Is there another way for Mr. Johnson to expand his park without sweeping change the ordinance?
I don't think he wants to expand the park. I think
Or add business to it? Would it be a special permit, a special use that's requested?
Or rezoning.
Right.
Yeah. So there could be, parcels, adjacent to each other that are just zoned differently, which happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it just depends if it's general commercial or Commerce Park, and then what Commerce Park includes. All right, any more discussion? All right, if you guys are ready, I'll entertain a motion. Doesn't look like we have a motion. So is that it? I'm asking you, Dan.
If no one makes a motion, there's nothing to vote on. So
Okay, then last chance for a motion.
this could certainly be brought back at another time as well. If you want to table it.
Okay. Well, we have a lack of a motion, so I guess that would suggest that it hasn't been approved or denied.
Right.
So maybe we need time to consider
Okay.
I
more
think
of the
for me,
ramifications
before I
of it.
vote, I need to feel confident that I'm understanding what I'm voting for. And right now, I just am not 100% sure. So I feel bad voting either way. Because
But I make a motion that we table this
Okay.
until you guys want to do it at the workshop or the next big meeting.
My hesitation is and still stands the sweeping change. So that's it was established with an intention and I'm not sure we're keeping with that intention.
Do you guys think we'll be ready by workshop, or do you want to do it the first meeting of June? I'm okay with either one.
And again, you wouldn't have to necessarily vote on it at the workshop, but you could put it on the agenda for further discussion.
Okay. I move that we table it to the workshop for further discussion. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Do I have to vote on the table? I think we did, so either way, it's approved. Sorry, I'm still like, this is month 6 for me, and every time we deal with new stuff, so bear with me.
There's no motion to table, I suppose.
Okay,
It'll be put back on the agenda item.
Right.
okay.
Okay.
Well, however we got there, that's what we're going to do, Jeff.
We'll come back in a couple of weeks.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right, new business. Elizabeth is going to present to us contracting with an elected official.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. As you are aware, the town has worked with Commissioner Kazakavich's legacy graphics and design business for several years now. General statute does allow commissioners to contract with the town. There is a statutory limit of $60,000. I want to be clear that this is not a contract to spend $60,000. This is simply that the general statute allows the town to make purchases of goods and services with a member of the board up to $60,000. Jim would have to recuse himself from the vote, of course, and we have to post the expenditures for a 12-month period. The general statute is attached in your agenda packet. It is General Statute 14-234. And if anyone is curious, the most that we've spent in the last 4 years is $5,300.
That's why I was going to ask you to just highlight that we are very obviously not spending $60,000.
Yes. And it's not obligating us to spend any money. It's simply saying that if we need something and we want to use Legacy Graphics, that the board is allowing the town to allow us to make those purchases of goods and services.
Thank you for explaining it like that, because I was in the audience last year when this came up, and it sure looked to me like the town was writing Jim a check for $60,000, and that is not the case. And it took me a while to learn that, but that is not the case. So correct me if I'm wrong, but you know, Jim Legacy Design does printing stuff, and they do things for the town sometimes.
They do.
There are other printing companies, and we use, you know, whatever source is the best for the town, you know. But if, for example, Jim wants to bid on a project and he happens to be the lowest bid, we need something like this in place just to be able to use him at the lowest bid. Or if we need something in a pinch because we forgot a sign for a parade float or a traffic sign or something for an event that just got overlooked, we could press Jim over there to do it by the next day, but we have to have this in place.
That's right.
To allow us to even do that.
And
then
it needs to be revisited by the board. You could set a limit and say every 2 years, but we recommend every year.
Yeah. So the contract lasts a year. I asked if we could lower the dollar amount to make it feel better, but the $60,000 is set by the state.
Yep.
That's right.
And we don't use Jim that much because, you know, he's careful too with conflict of interest stuff. But I think it would be good to at least have the option, and that's what this means, is that we would have the option to use him. So Jim is going to recuse himself from the vote and maybe discussion, which I think is fine, but any of you guys have any input?
Go ahead.
No, please.
You go ahead.
Go right ahead. Were you going to say something?
Yes, when you all first took your oath, you all came out saying about commissioners' family members being appointed. What's the difference between, I mean, I know the difference, but if we're going to not have family members being appointed on boards, we shouldn't have commissioners doing stuff for the town.
That's a good point. I think that having family members on boards is more in the interest of getting as much public input and differing opinion as we could get. In Jim's case, I think if we're talking about only using him for an emergency or allowing him to bid in a bid situation, I mean, if he's the low bid, we can't use him,
Right.
period, if we don't have this in place. I mean, he wouldn't even bid, but then it's really up to Jim what he wants to bid, whether or not he even profits from anything he does for the town.
I just don't think it's a good perception. That's just my take.
Yeah.
I'm only one vote. I mean, I do know the statute says does not exceed 60,000, but
That's fine. And when you
That's
say
just my opinion.
posted, when you say that what we spend on him is posted, what exactly does that mean?
There's a bulletin board on the way into town hall.
Okay.
And it is posted there. And it will be notated in the financial statements at the end of the year.
Okay. So if there's ever a concern, you don't even have to do a public record request. It's going to be on the bulletin board. You don't even have to step in the building. It'll be on the bulletin board what he has been paid. And while I certainly appreciate, that we want to avoid as much conflict of interest as possible, it's still up to us to do that in this case. But if we don't pass it, then we simply don't have the option to use him, period. So it's still going to fall on us in any case that we consider him to make sure we're being fair and avoiding conflict of interest in any case. Just without it, our hands are tied without it. That's my thought.
I just know there's like 2 or 3 other businesses out there that can do the exact same thing, and they've worked with the town in the past.
Do you know, Samantha's here, and I'm sure she just knows right off the top of her head how much that we spend on the kind of services Jim provides? T-shirts, printing. I mean, just spitball something for me. You did the budget. What is it?
No.
Be fair.
No, because you have Parks and Rec ordering things. You
Right.
have the police department. I mean, I really couldn't specify.
Well, anyway, and then last year we spent on Jim's business through the town as a whole
Yes, through the town as
and
a
every
whole,
department.
$5,294.74.
Okay.
In year ending 2023, we spent $919.94. In 2022, we spent $2,815.98. 2021, $4,340.14, and then in 2020, $2,733.85.
So the most was $5,300.
Yes.
And then everything else between $900 and $3,000 a year, give or take.
The other companies that you mentioned, LaRue, are they local? Are they Anger businesses?
There's a guy that's behind Carly C's that does it. There's one like between Anger and Lillington. They've done it.
Which the town is still free to contract with in this circumstance.
Exactly.
The only thing that we're approving is the ability to use Jim also. It doesn't limit that we only use Jim. It
Oh,
just
I
says that
totally
he's an
understand
option.
I totally understand that.
There's
see what you're
each
doing.
business kind of has a niche. Some do things that others don't. So it's good to have balance.
Yeah, I think we get it from a lot of different places, online, other local businesses. So we're not obligating to spend any money with Jim. We're just keeping the door open as an option if it's the best choice.
I think history proves that allowing this, it has not been abused or taken advantage of. I think not approving it is just a little irresponsible, because if we are in a pinch, we don't have to use him like it's been said, but why not have the availability to, if need be?
I want it on the record, I never claimed that it was abused or taken advantage of. Just want that on the record. I did not say that, and that was not my intention. I'm just trying to be, y'all want to be transparent? That's why I'm bringing this to your attention, because I've had several constituents, and I even talked to the mayor today, had several constituents reach out to me about this. So that's why I'm saying what I'm saying tonight.
Hopefully, we can alleviate some of the concerns with the explanation of everything tonight.
Because I didn't want them coming in here and start a ruckus. That's why I told him I would take the blunt of the criticism tonight. So, with that being said, make a motion.
There's no other discussion. I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we approve town staff to purchase goods and services from Legacy Design and Graphics in the amount not to exceed $60,000 in a 12-month period. That the total amount of the contract for each fiscal year be noted in the town's annual financial statement, and the summary of the purchases be posted in Town Hall in accordance with General Statute 14-234.
All right, Jim's going to recuse himself. So all those in favor, raise your right hand. And all those opposed. The motion carries. Next, Elizabeth, it's you again. RFQ on-call agreements.
Yes. So several months ago, I requested to get requests for qualifications from several different engineering firms so that whenever we needed a park plan or a comprehensive land use plan or some other special engineering need, that we didn't have to go through the RFQ process every single time. And so by having 3 different firms in an on-call status, we're able to get a task order, which just streamlines the whole process and allows us to go straight to work. I know one of the things the board's interested in is a traffic study along Broad. And so if we did not have the on-call agreements, we would have to go through the RFQ process every time there was some need that came up. So we received 10 submissions from engineering firms all over the state. They were scored independently by a committee of staff members, and we selected the top 3 firms, which were Withers Ravenel, MS Consultants, and McAdams. The contracts are attached in your agenda, and staff is requesting that you make a motion to approve the on-call agreements between the town of Angier, Withers Ravenel, MS Consultants, and McAdams for on-call services, and allow the manager to execute the contract.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion?
This was like a bulk RFQ. This is like you're telling us why you would be qualified ahead of time.
So there was, in the RFQ, there were specific items that
Okay.
we listed out. Stormwater, land use planning, we're getting ready to do our comprehensive land
Yeah.
use plan. So assuming that that is approved in the budget, on July 1, we can just request for a proposal and send a task order and get started right away.
Can you tell us of these 3, have we worked with any of them before?
So we have worked with Withers Ravenel. They wrote the
Our
lead and copper line grant. I have not worked with MS Consultants, have not worked with McAdams, but they do come highly recommended from some peer communities.
There's no further discussion. I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the on-call engineering agreements between the town of Angier and Withers Ravenel, MS Consultants, and McAdams for on-call services.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Unanimous. All right, Elizabeth, strategic plan and dashboard.
Okay. So hopefully everyone that's watching and in the audience is familiar with the process that we went through for the strategic plan. It included employee surveys. It included individual surveys between the consultant from McGill and Associates and each of you. And then it also considered input from the community. So before you is the final draft of the strategic priorities that you all chose for the plan to focus on over the next 2 to 3 years. And then it also includes initiative and key performance indicators. So basically the action steps that myself and staff will need to take in order to plan and implement sustainable infrastructure, operate as an excellent public service organization. So those are before you for adoption tonight.
If it's okay, I want to finish reading what they are just so that everybody
Yes, go
knows.
ahead. Yeah, absolutely.
So the first two, plan and implement sustainable infrastructure. B, operate as an excellent public service organization. C, promote community and economic development. D, responsibly manage residential growth. E, develop an outstanding parks and recreation system. And F, provide a high level of public safety.
I don't have any questions because this is what we've been working towards. This is just like putting our seal
Yes.
on everything that we've been working to up until this point. Does anyone else have any questions or comments?
This is asking for us to adopt it so that maybe then it can be posted publicly so that the community can look through.
Yes.
Okay.
And so that both the community and our staff know where our ship is headed.
Yes,
and
we love
what
direction.
what we need to do to get there.
So this is it. We're going to nail it to the wall and be held up against it. The board, the staff, everyone. This is what you said you were going to do. So here you go. I'm willing to do it. 'Cause I agree with everything we've worked towards on this. So anyone else? I will entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the strategic plan and key performance indicators.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. That's unanimous. Thank you, Elizabeth. Item number 4, I'm going to present. But before I do, we're going to get some stuff out of the way. What we're proposing, the people who work for the company that offer this might have some connections to us. So we're going to get that out of the way. Ashley, if you want to go first.
I am asking to recuse myself from this discussion and this vote because my husband owns Grunt Media Solutions and he would be participating by contracting with the shop on this item. So we would benefit financially. So I would be more comfortable out of respect for the board and the town to just recuse myself from this discussion.
Thank you. And I'll say that I am friends with Addison Allgood, who's the other person in the pair of the group that would do this. Because there are only 3 up here, I will not be able to vote anyway, because there's not going to be a tie. I am going to present it to you because it was kind of my idea. But other than that, I'm going to let you guys decide. So there's no conflict. We're avoid it as well as we can. I don't think it's like a recusable conflict of interest, but I want to say it so everyone knows that I'm not trying to hide anything about it, that he's a friend of mine, but I'm not going to be able to vote anyway. So basically, I had this harebrained idea, and staff ran with it very quickly, which I appreciate and do not expect in every case, so don't get me wrong. Watching some of Ashley's videos on businesses around the town. And if you haven't seen one, then you're not on Facebook because they're everywhere. And they are fantastically edited. They shine a spotlight on all of our businesses and they get so much reach. And when I see these and whenever we have an event, you know, if we have any event or anything that happens up here, half of the people say, "Oh, that was great," and the other half of the people say, "How come I didn't know about that? Why didn't you tell me about that?" I'm like, "Well, we're trying to tell you about it as hard as we can, and while we do have other things in the works to reach every demographic that lives here, it was my thought that, especially given the success of her video series, that the town could do a series of short videos to help raise awareness about the kind of things that we're doing up here that maybe are sometimes hard to understand, to help let people know about events, to help people know about water billing and issues like that, that if you're not sitting in this room, you might not fully comprehend what's happening. My idea was to do a series of 6 videos, and the thought was that we would get a member of town staff, whether it's Elizabeth or a certain department head, and do a short interview with them so people get to know them, and then touch on the things in their department that they feel like the public really needs to know about. Maybe they don't understand, maybe they're not aware, but get a platform where we can capture people's attention and then try to send the message across. So this, along with some other ideas that we're working on, ultimately is a community outreach, a way to reach out and connect with the community. I'm going to let, did you guys bring a presentation? So we have spoken initially with The Shop, who has a studio right here in downtown, an audio studio, and they would partner with Grunt Media to do the video and video editing and give the town 6 well-edited, finished out videos. And for each of those videos, a trailer or a teaser is what they call it. Because the videos themselves might be 20, 30 minutes, and we're not going to capture everyone's attention right away. So the thought is that we can get a teaser and put that out with some of the highlights to get people to actually watch the actual video. But if you guys have brought an example of some of your work, I'd love to see it, just so we can see kind of what we're talking about here.
Mr. Mayor, Council, we brought something that we just threw together before our ribbon cutting, and just thought that'd be all you need.
Just looks like a beach.
Oh, that's definitely not the shot. one day. Hey, what's up, y'all? Addison Allgood coming to you from The Shop. I'm here with Jake Strickland today, and we're coming here to talk to y'all a little bit about the podcast studio we've got up front that's available to you guys to rent. We've got editing available. Jake, what do you think about these microphones? Microphones actually sound pretty good, man. Like when you first reached out to me about the microphones, I was worried because the first thing you see me, I think was like $75, and I was like, I don't know if we can do that. So yeah, man, I'm glad you kept doing your research, and you definitely got some good ones. Not only are we offering space rental if you want to use your own stuff, we're offering these microphones. We're offering basic editing for any of the podcast stuff you want to do. But then we're here with Jake from Grunt Media, and we're going to be doing some more. Jake, you want to? So guys, like you said before, I'm Jake with Grunt Media Solutions, one of the local videographers here in Angier, and me and Addison have partnered together so that way not only can he now offer clients the audio file, so if they want to come in and rent the space for just an hour and use just the microphones and the recording stuff, they can have an audio file. Or now that we've partnered together, you can bring the high quality 4K footage like you're seeing here, and we can do that at multiple different levels. We talked about packages, so we have those on there. So if you have any questions on those, obviously reach out to either of us on that. But yeah, it's going to be super nice because the power of a podcast is people can put it, a video podcast, and that is they can put it on multiple different platforms. They can chop up a 5-minute conversation and get 15 different pieces of content from it, from that one sitting. Even if they don't have the video, they can use just the audio and chop that up. So multiple different ways you can use it. I've been helping businesses and brands and people for a number of years helping podcasts. So I'm excited, especially I can give that skill set back to the community here in the local thing. But if you're interested in anything we have to offer here, you can check us out, www.theshopspace.us. There you scroll down a little bit, and there's a form for you to fill out. I will contact you directly, answer any questions that you have, tell you about different plans we've got. This is really top quality equipment that we're offering you guys, and we're trying to do it at a minimal cost. So please feel free to reach out. Even if you're just curious, come, you can sign up and I can just show you around the shop. Absolutely. So really excited to be working with Grunt Media, and
All right, so this is the video I saw, and the audio in this room does not do it justice, obviously. But the actual audio is really high quality. That's what inspired me. And now we'll get right down to brass tacks, and you could stand there and all nervous if you want, or you don't have to. They brought us a proposal of $2,400 for 6 episodes, which includes the audio, the camera equipment, all the lighting. He's nickel and diming us here on all the little stuff, but it's all included. And most importantly, post-production services like editing. As you could see, what they've done in this video here was only 2 minutes and 40 seconds long, I think, something like that. But $2,400 for 6, so that's $400 an episode. Now we have got, in the interest of due diligence, we've looked around to find other local vendors that offer similar services. We've got anything from monthly subscriptions up to $570 to $400. Some of these are $1,500 for one episode, not just 6. I actually called around myself too to make sure, especially given that I am a friend of yours, but I want to make sure we're doing the right thing. Found a place in Cary that offers what they tout as a very similar service. And the price for their whole package deal of what seemed most similar to what we were looking at here was between $150 to $200. And it's a lot less. That's about half the price. So we looked into the difference between using a studio that's right here in downtown Angier to traveling to Cary. And just on the dollar and cents bare bones of it, between mileage and the pay of the employee that we use to travel to Cary and record this and come back, based on what that employee makes, takes that $150 to $200, anywhere from $300 to $400. And that doesn't include my time or whoever the host is of this episode to also travel to Cary, because I don't get paid for that stuff. I do this because I love you guys. But if we don't factor that, then it's a very similar price. And I'm also not sure that with as much as we've got town staff doing, that we would want to give one up for 3 hours to go to Cary versus, oh, hey, jump across the street. I think the pricing's very similar, but the support of a local business is important, and I certainly factor it into mine. Now, the formation of these videos and who's going to host it, and I don't know if we need to decide all that tonight.
Yeah, so I just want to be clear too. I'm gonna pause you there. So the shop space and Grunt Media Solutions are not going to be labeled on anything that we post, so it will be town property once it's videoed, and once it becomes in Chrissy's. It will be labeled such as the town. Jake nor Addison will be hosting any of the episodes, so we won't see their faces. What we saw tonight will not be what it actually looks like. It's not something that we are trying to plug in one single business. As we did tonight, we are trying to utilize local businesses where we can, because we are very fortunate to have a wide variety of them at our fingertips. Bob has mentioned an inclination to hosting. I also would like to talk to Chrissy, although she's not here tonight, about possibly hosting. I think it falls right into the direction that we're looking for in terms of community engagement and ways to utilize her as well. And so I'll add as well, this is not a requirement for any staff member. If they don't want to do it, they do not have to do it. This is a way for us to bridge a gap that we see, not to force anybody to do anything that makes them uncomfortable, although standing here in front of us at that microphone might be as uncomfortable as it gets. So I don't know that this platform might be a little bit more comfortable, but just to get some of those nuts and bolts out of the way, that this is, an attempt to bridge a gap with the community, and that's where the intentions are. So yeah, I had a lot of questions about this whenever I first heard about it. I was not a part of the meeting, and it was like, oh, okay, but so.
I think ultimately this is a project that Chrissy would manage in totality, you know, as far as
She would
organizing
be-
it, the release of it.
She would be very excited to
Yeah.
host, and she has a name for it.
Great.
Yeah.
So look, I'm only volunteering to host. I'd be totally happy not to. Although there are some town staff I'd love to get in a room with, talk to for half an hour, but so I don't care. I don't know that we need to decide tonight other than to say that it'll fall to Chrissy on the management of this video series. We're just simply going to approve if we're going to do it and with this vendor tonight is what we're looking at. Does anyone else have questions?
Approximately how many people will this reach out to?
Let me state my address.
Speak right in that microphone.
So I did some research because we don't have a baseline to go off of. The town's never done a podcast. All we can look at is videos that the town has done because we're based on a video podcast off of that. And from what I looked at, it doesn't look like it looks like the town's only had 2 videos in the last couple years hit 1,000 views. And so if I can gauge anything off of what the town could see, I have to go off a Living Local series. And that's just posted right there on Ashley's personal page. And so if we just went off the numbers of hers, kind of like to gauge like where the town is, are they engaging with it, are they liking it or whatnot. So it was a 12 video series. And between Facebook and Instagram, and I can give you those numbers separate if you like, but between Facebook and Instagram, just for those 12 videos alone, she had 43,825 views. So that kind of gives you an example of kind of the reach you could get. So the information that you're trying to get out to them about events or different things that you're covering in these meetings, if the BOC meeting is only getting, like the last meeting got 217 views.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if we do a podcast and it reaches 1,000 people and gets 20 different comments, you got no public comment, you know what I mean? So we have to look at it as not necessarily just the views, how many views we get, but how much engagement are we getting? Like the comments that we were getting off the Living Local series were like, I don't even live in Andrew, but this makes me want to come. Or I didn't know that they did that there. Or now I have to go check this place out. So it's bringing the engagement to it too, and not necessarily just looking at just the viewership, but I'm pretty certain with the quality of content. Now that also comes to how good is the host? How good is the guest? Are they engaging in their conversation, or are they like, hey, I work here and this is what I do, and you know what I mean? Or is it a funny conversation back and forth? So that's going to play it. And one thing that a lot of these other companies, when you reach out to them, don't mention because it's an extra fee, is the coaching that comes along with doing a podcast, hosting a podcast. If you've never done it, it's not just shooting a video. Ashley makes it look easy when she goes around town interviewing people, but it's because she has me and she's good at it anyway, but she has me there. She's seen me operate, so she knows the ins and outs. So having that also too is just kind of something extra that obviously you won't see in the nickel and diamond that we did, but that's just something that I feel like I have to do because I want to see it be successful.
So you'll be there doing that?
Yes. No,
Okay.
I would be there.
You're not
with
just setting a
Christy.
camera up and...
No. I want to be there to help her and show her initially how to post them, when to post them, different tags to do, different collaborations to do to make sure those viewerships are higher. So it's not just, hey, here's your video, I did my part, thank you, pay me. I be involved in it just like you've seen other stuff.
And that's because you have a local interest. And so that's one of the benefits we have of utilizing local businesses is it matters to them too. It matters to his neighbors. It matters to his kids, friends, families. Like, you know, I think that's a important facet of working with local businesses is they are invested.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say one thing real quick. If you're worried about somebody engaging in this, you sit them in that chair, put those headphones on, and stick that microphone in front of them, and they don't stop talking. I just spent 3 hours compressing a 45-minute audio only episode to 12 minutes. So I mean you're gonna have no problem.
Yeah. And so I'll point out again that this has got a white label rider on it, meaning that the shop, Alex and Jake are going to do all the work behind the scenes, but they're not going to get any credit. There's not going to be the shop in the credits or Grunt Media or Addison. It will totally belong to the town. You want to expand on that?
I just want to add one more thing. This hit me right before we came up here tonight, though, and it's something that we're talking with other people that I want to use this space is another thing y'all can look at, and this is something I could help her with too, is sponsorship for your episodes. So you could actually make your money back off of touching bases with, I already know a handful of local businesses that are waiting for podcasts to come out so they can, hey, can you read this little 20-second blurb and mention my business at the beginning of the episode? I want to sponsor that podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So now sponsorships coming in that y'all can do. The business gets their name out there. Y'all recoup some of the money back. So
Sounds like a great way to evolve. I think right now what this looks like is the town dipping their toe into the new frontier of social media marketing. And not that we are not already on social media, but you know, her video series is a perfect example of the kind of reach and engagement we could get that people say they are lacking. And so that's what this is an effort to get towards.
Any?
So Addison, bring her that microphone.
Ka-chow.
Come on.
I do want to mention about the sponsorship. We actually cannot do that for the town. So unfortunately, that's not a way for us to make revenue with the sponsorship. We cannot do that for our episodes. And then I just wanted to ask the intention for the 6 series part we're doing right now. Is this something you're looking at for longevity of doing once a year, or are you looking for something just for current events that only apply for right now?
That's a good question, and Chrissy's going to have to weigh in on that when if we approve it, on how to best utilize these. It was my thought that this would be just testing out to see if it got response, and we would focus on current events because it would be easy to measure the results of that, whether or not it was received. You know, if we talk about a concert series or an event that's coming up, and if we don't get any more people to that event or nobody heard about it, then it'd be easier to measure whether or not it was a successful endeavor. Or if we say, please sign up for auto pay on your water bill, and if you get 1,000 people to sign up in the next 2 weeks on your water bill, then that would be very easy to see that this was an effective method. So for now, I think we just try it, and then we can review it afterwards and see if it's something we want to continue to do or how often, and go from there. It's my thought. That's all I have to say about that. So if anyone has any discussion, we'll hear it.
I think we need to at least do it on a trial basis, see how it works out, and take it from there.
All right, then. Somebody give me a motion. Let's get this over with.
I'll go ahead and make
This
the
is weird.
motion that we do the podcast to increase community engagement on a trial basis.
All right. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? It passes. All right. All business. Elizabeth, it says you're back up here again to talk about Campo's updated MOU. And I'm sure you will tell us all what
Yes.
MOU is.
So the town of Anger is a member of the Capital Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, which determines transportation. So like the bypass and all of our DOT needs, it's transportation planning. So we are a member of that organization, and they have added the town of Coates and the town of Lillington and Chatham County. And so therefore, as a member of the entire board, you need to approve the new MOU.
That's cool. So they can't join unless we say it's okay.
I mean, you could try it, but
At the Campo meeting I went to, they accepted them. It was nice to see Coates and Lillington
It is.
there. I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the updated MOU with Campo.
All right. Any discussion? Then all those in favor, raise your right hand. It's unanimous. All right. Bill, I saw you here tonight. You're up. Bill's going to talk to us about the funding offer for a water distribution core system replacement in Junie Road, 500,000 gallon elevated tank.
Yeah, I'll be brief and bore you with some numbers.
All right.
And then I'm going to turn it over to Faith. As you know, we just recently received our letter of intent to fund for the 2023, SL 2023-134 state budget appropriations. That was $9 million. And the intent was to use that money to supplement our 3 ongoing projects, the replacement of the 8.1 miles of core water distribution lines, the 500,000 gallon elevated water storage tank, and the capacity purchase with North Harnett Regional, the $1.25 million. So in 2021, we had $2,456,250 appropriated for the elevated tank. We have requested out of this $9 million an additional $2 million, which brings us to the budget that our design consultant has us at as within the last few months when he did his last estimate. So our total for the elevated tank right now, the funding amount that we have available is $4,456,250. On the core system replacement in 2021, in that session law, we had $4,250,000 that was appropriated, and we have requested it in this last round for 2023 an additional $1 million. So that brings that budget to $5,250,000. Which again matches the estimate of our design consultant. When it comes to the 1.25 million gallon wastewater treatment capacity purchase, we had appropriations both in 2021 and 2022 in those budgets, and that totaled between the two $6,118,750. So we have requested an additional, and have a letter of intent to fund now, an additional $5,730,000 to be utilized towards that capacity purchase. So that gives us a funding level right now in state budget appropriations of $11,848,750. The project cost right now, based on Harnett Regional Waters, $15,468,889. When I say the project cost, the town of Anger's 14% portion of the project. So we've got an additional $3,620,139. You will need to, for whatever reason, the Division of Water Infrastructure assigned different numbers to these appropriations, even though they're supplementing past funding. So there's no RFQ, there's no design. This is just, we're going to roll from one set of funding in terms of reimbursement requests to the next. However, they are still asking for the resolutions that you did in the first round. So whether that's the workshop or next month, we'll be bringing forward resolutions accepting the funding. But the last 3 years, in terms of funding these projects, the state has been good to us.
It sounds like it.
And if there's no other questions, like I said, I just wanted to update you on the numbers and where we were. I'm going to turn it over to Faith.
Thank you, Bill.
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. So my portion of this was just to amend the ordinances that we passed back in March to reflect the numbers that we received with this letter of intent to fund. So for the core system replacement, we added $1 million. It'll be reflected in that top line of the ordinance, moving it up to $4 million. In the storage tank, we added $2 million, so that now equals about $3.96 million. And then for the wastewater treatment plant, that was the rest of the funding that we received, and that is $5.73 million. So all I had to do was amend the ordinances to reflect the funding that we received from the letter of intent to fund.
And we can't spend the money until we adopt the ordinances.
Okay. Any questions? All right. If everyone feels good, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the amendments to the core replacement water tower and wastewater treatment plant project ordinances so the town may move forward in construction of the project.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. It's unanimous. All right, Elizabeth, it says you have a USDA budget update.
Yes, thank you. We have been working between Davenport, who has been our financial consultant for this project, and then also with USDA. Tobias is our consultant. Basically, when you go to buy a house, if you get approved for $300,000, it's hard to go back and say, well, I need to get $350,000. And so what the USDA is recommending is that we have the number of $6 million, which you all had already approved us to go up to 5.8, which would be reimbursing us for expenses we've already paid out of pocket. So my suggestion is to leave it at 5.8, understanding that $200,000 out of the general fund budget that is going to be presented to you in just a few weeks will go towards that interim financing cost. So we have to go out to a bank, we have to get a construction loan, and we have to pay the interest every month when we do a draw. Then at the end, USDA converts it to your 30-year.
So fun.
Any questions for Elizabeth?
So you already approved to be at 5.8
Mhm.
some months ago. And so what I'm saying is we're going to pay $200,000 cash as our contribution because we have to have a contribution to the project.
Mhm.
And Jimmy is a very good budget manager,
Mhm.
and we will not be up above that number. And we have been doing some research into some of the fees associated with some of the reports that have to be done by CPAs, and we believe we can get it significantly cheaper.
Mhm.
So while $25,000 doesn't sound like a lot in a project, $25,000 here and there starts to add up.
Yeah. So to be clear, this doesn't mean we think the project is going to cost $200,000 more.
It does not. No.
It's just a safety net
It's just
that we're building in.
USDA is like, you need to have this as the number so that we can underwrite that number,
Mhm.
understanding that it's very difficult to go back should there be some kind of problem. Just
Okay.
like when you buy a house.
Mm-hmm. All right. If nobody else has any questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to use the interim financing amount of $200,000 as the town's contribution towards this project and direct staff to draft a letter to be signed by the mayor and submitted to USDA as part of the town's application for financing.
All right. All those in favor, raise your right hand. It's unanimous. Thank you. Do you have a report for us before you sit back down? I do. Neglected to print it out. So that's it. We're done with old business, and we're going to move on to staff reports.
Okay. So it's been a busy time lately,
Mm-hmm.
which is great. So I'm going to be updating you on a couple of projects. We just talked about one of them, the construction of the new police department. As I stated, staff's been working with Davenport to review financials. They go back 7 years. As you know, we've had a change in finance directors. So we've had a little bit of research to understand why this was placed in this line item and not that line item and those type of things. We have contract documents that have been submitted to USDA for review. We have a proposal to conduct a NEPA review, which is the National Environmental Policy Act review. This identifies if there are endangered species, plants, historical remains. It's a requirement of the financing. So all of those things are slowly moving forward, and we're getting the contracts together to hopefully have before you very soon. The lead copper service line replacement grant. Inventory was mandated by the EPA, so every water system in the country has to do an inventory of all of their lines, ensuring that any that may have had lead or copper are inventoried and replaced. You have to replace 8% every year once they've been identified. Most of the construction in Anger is after 1987. And so that's when those components stop being used. So we don't have a tremendous amount, but we do have to follow through with the inventory and replacement. And so we did get a $2 million grant to do that. Junie Road water tank and the booster pump station. So the booster pump station's out on Tippett Road. You guys know where Junie Road is. We received bids on April 24th for construction of the water tank and the booster pump. They believe that breaking it into two projects would get a better result as far as a low bid. So we received 3 bids for the tank, and we'll present the recommended contractor at the May 21st meeting, contingent on DWI approval. Only 2 bids were received for the booster pump. Therefore, the project must be re-advertised for 7 days. Bid opening will be on May 9th. And so at that time, if there are still only 2 bids, then the town can move forward with the lowest bidder. So that's what's going on.
Cool.
Any questions?
I don't have any for you.
No. Appreciate you.
Do you know the staff that wants to come up and present a report for us? Derek? Sure. All right. Well, we have your guys' reports, so thank you. Uh-oh.
I just wanted to mention something because I don't think that was in our report.
Please do.
But I just wanted to mention that, there's not a lot of funding. It was $12.5 million. The DWI Lassie Stormwater, their spring grant applications were due April 30th. So we spent a lot of time during April putting that package together. We submitted, I don't have the number in front of me, it was about $2.25 million. What we applied for was try and get the funding for mitigation measure 1 and mitigation measure 2 in the southwest area drainage. But that application did go in, and we'll just keep our fingers crossed.
All right. Thank you, Bill.
I know water and infrastructure was our least fun topic of the night, but it's such an important one. I know everybody that experiences issues with water is happy to hear that those projects are moving forward. So slowly but surely, those projects are moving forward.
All right. Do any of you guys have anything you want to say while we have a captive audience? All right. I don't have anything to add tonight. It's been a long month, so I'm sorry. I guess we need to have a motion to close open session and to go into closed session. Okay. I'll figure this out soon.
I make a motion we go into closed session to discuss personnel
And property acquisition.
and property acquisition.
Okay. All those in favor, raise your hand. It's unanimous. All right. Thank you, guys. With that, we're going to take a short recess.